This is the Page Publishing Book Club. How you doing? I'm Alice Stockton Rossini. You know, it's hard enough to lose a spouse, but when you know how important something was to that loved one, you will do whatever you can to get it the attention it deserves. Such is the case with The Surrogate. It was written by Donald Smith, and he passed away in March before he had the chance to do our interview. So joining us is his wife, Barbara, and I give you so much credit for stepping up to do this.
No, it was so special to him. It just meant a lot to see somebody accomplish something like that to me. And he was born on May 12th of 41, and his parents brought him up they had like a dry cleaning business. And then he went on to college, and he married young, and of course that didn't work out very well, but they did have 3 children. And after they divorced, went on to a life for himself, kind of living a life like this book depicts. He had a law degree, and he also had medical degrees. He worked as a phlebotomist for a long time, and then he just became sort of as he put it, a mercenary. I mean, he was just on his own and just did different things and worked kind of with and against the law. I don't know how to put it, but he lived a pretty exciting life. And as I read this book, I realized, even though it's a fictional book, it really depicted a lot of his lifestyle. And it's about a surrogate task force, and it's people who are going after people they felt didn't serve the proper justice, such as a judge and parole officers and a vigilante type group, and they call themselves the surrogate task force.
Reading his blurb, it says a federal judge is executed in New Orleans. An unknown assassin hangs him from a giant oak tree in Audubon Park. A female reporter happens upon the scene after it happens and scoops this sensational story for her newspaper. She tries to follow it up, but finds the police baffled, and then she meets and falls in love with an older FBI agent assigned to the case.
Yes, that would be Jason Kimball, and her name was Valerie Hutchins. They did fall in love, and they actually went on to live a life together, to get married and everything. But the way the vigilantes did this, it was so hard for anybody to catch them, and they just got to realize, and it just seemed really odd that all these people were, going through these different deaths in the weirdest ways. And but they finally, those two put it together. And then the one character that surprised me, that he was at the head of the surrogate task force, because throughout the book, you're just reading about him like you are the others. He was at the head of that. That would have been Michael Bannister.
He's frustrated by the federal and penal systems, and he believes that his brother and his brother's wife are dead because federal judges and prison officers were indifferent to them.
Right, right.
And so he's the one that heads up this surrogate task force.
Yes, yes. It was definitely a good book. I was surprised. I've had it, and of course mine's signed by him, thank the Lord. But uh, I just hadn't had the time to read. Been going through a lot, when he got sick and everything. But um, sitting down, I've just been going outside and sitting down on the porch and reading every day, and it really was interesting. I was really proud of him.
So what happens now?
I don't want it to just die down. It was just a huge accomplishment for him, and he was so proud, so proud. When he opened the box and took out that first book, the look on his face was just priceless. And I wouldn't have taken anything for being able to see that. So, and it's not even for to sell it for money. It's just to get it out there for him in his memory. Like I said, it's just something that means a lot.
All right.
So.
Barbara, thanks so much. When you're thinking of different and unique gifts for your wife, does writing a book come to mind? It did for Jeffrey Masters after writing poems for his wife over the years, and even a science fiction novel. He's now published Chained to My Heart.
Well, yeah, well, two main characters. One lives in Fairbanks, Alaska. It's the female, Taylor, and she's divorced. The other one is a male character, which is Lucas, and he resides in Seattle, Washington. They used to live in a small town in Point Hope, Alaska, and for some reason, the brother was gone. He owned this inn. It was on the northern coast of Alaska in a small town called Point Hope, and he invited them up there for a vacation. Well, neither of them knew that they were going to be there, so they both ended up in this vacant inn. They had a really good friendship when they were kids. And of course, they parted ways when she got married. So they hadn't really talked since then. But she divorced, and they got up there, and all of a sudden their conversation, changed from the way things used to be to, more modern day stuff, more adult. What brings them together there is the brother wanted somebody to watch the inn to get it ready for New Year's Eve when they have the bar open again. Lucas always wanted Taylor, but he never acted on it. She started dating really young, and she got married, and it didn't work out the way she was supposed to. And she stupidly, when she was drunk one night before she got married, she had said something to him, and it turned out to be something that she felt that she had to pay back. It was something very stupid, but then again, she was drunk. She said that if this wasn't right, that she should be spanked.
Does he spank her?
Of course he does. Of course he does, but it's the way that he does it that she's not expecting. It's far beyond it, because at some point he comes out of the storeroom. Of course, they're both hammered at that time. He comes out of the storeroom with a coil of rope in his hand. So it kind of enlightens her in a way that she wasn't really expecting. But she also found out that she liked it too.
This isn't 50 Shades of Grey, is it?
No.
Now, does this have any parallels to your relationship?
I wish I could say that, but no.
Just something you made up in your mind?
Yes. Yeah.
Did your wife love it?
She did. And she right away said that I should turn it into a novel. And of course, I'm one of those people that are very timid since it's my first novel. And I turned to her, and of course she said she loved it, the whole novel. And then I called some friends in, and we had like a little book club. They very much liked it. And they were from all different kind of reading genres, Well, this was our personal book club. I do it for all of my novels so far. We're just finishing up the fourth one right now. So
now you write novels all the time?
I try to. It's tough when you're working 40 hours and, you're a husband and you have other things to do on the side. But when I get time, yes, I sit down, I seriously put down my thoughts.
So people are aware that you're a writer and they're reading your stuff?
Yes. And I've got some very good compliments and pats on the back, even with coworkers. Sometimes coworkers can be kind of harsh, especially when they're male coworkers. And no, they've been very, very for this. And, some have even purchased books too.
So where do we go from here?
Well, I have my second novel coming out the end of summer. That one's a little steamier than this one. It's a little less love, but a little more hot to it. So
less love, more steam.
Yes.
That's great.
Yes.
All right, Jeffrey, listen, could you call my husband and ask him to write a book for me? I would love that. As a parent, you never stop worrying about all the things that can happen to your kids. And for Diane Abernathy, it was the unthinkable. Her 15-year-old son had an accident. It left him a quadriplegic. She dedicated her life to taking care of him and shares one amazing story in her book, Present Suffering, Future Glory.
He was playing Marco Polo in the neighbor's pool, and he dove into the shallow side, but he hit his head on the side of the pool and broke his neck.
Oh, my God. What kind of a life did he live?
He's doing real well. He went to Miami University, where I drove up every night to take care of him so he could stay on campus. Then he got a master's in theology from Fuller Seminary in Pasadena, California. Then he finally realized that if he wanted to go into politics, he's going to have to be a lawyer. So he went to law school in Virginia Beach, and I went for about a year to help him get settled. And now he's an attorney, and he works for Freedom Foundation that's in Washington State, but he got married and moved to Michigan. His wife lived in Michigan, so he's working from home, still working for the Freedom Foundation in Washington.
That's incredible.
And they adopted a little girl last year. She's 4 years old.
I mean, did you ever think this is the way it was going to turn out?
No. In fact, I have a picture that one of my favorite pictures of him, actually my best video of him on my phone, is him pushing his little girl in a swing. He can't use his arm. All he can use are his biceps, but he uses his bicep to make his arm a lever, And so he just pulled up close to her on the swing and pushed her on the back. It was quite interesting that I never thought I would see that.
So what was it like after the accident?
After the accident, I was pretty much in a state of shock, and I just did what I knew I had to do, and I just kept going and going and going and going. And I really had a lot more trouble after the accident, after he moved away and then he got married. And it was just so hard to try to go back to normal. I didn't really have too many friends because, I'd pretty much taken care of him 24/7. And our marriage was not that great. Our marriage had kind of, disintegrated, and we were still fine. Okay, but it wasn't like we were married like before. And then I found out that I had borderline personality disorder my whole life, which I just discovered after I started counseling after he left. So it was hard getting through that part. And I had to study a lot about that and go to counseling and figure out what I was, if I was going to be able to handle that. And I was, and I did. But then in May of 2017, we had a big argument with my husband, and I tried to commit suicide, and I went to rehab. And then 6 months later, my husband died of pancreatic cancer.
Jeez, Diane. Oh my God.
That's why I wrote a book.
Did it help you to write the book?
Yes, it did. It helped me a lot to write the book because I could see living through all of it again was almost as cathartic. It was almost like I could put it in a drawer and, put it away.
Yeah, so you're doing okay now?
Yeah, I got married April 23rd. It was amazing. We had the same financial advisor, and she knew that he took dance lessons, and she knew that I took dance lessons. And he said he wanted a partner, and so she asked me if she could give him my information. So she did. So we met at Arthur Murray, and we danced.
Oh, what a great story, Diane. This is the stuff movies are made of. Good luck. Drawing on 48 years of experience as a teacher and tutor, Dr. Donald Yokitis shares his wealth of knowledge and experience in his book, A Caring Errand, a handbook for educators, future educators, and students' caregivers.
Yeah, there's a need for this. The book covers all aspects of elementary and secondary schooling, and there are 6 chapters. The introductory chapter, then a chapter on classroom management, one on elementary education, one on secondary education, and a final chapter on moral education. And it covers students who have special needs and students that are in general education classes.
What do you see as the biggest problem we're facing today?
Probably over 50% of students that are reading it not at lower than the basic level of competency in reading comprehension. And what we need is we need more hands on board. We need more people like as volunteers, adult volunteers, college students to come in and help with the reading instruction. I think reading is a foundation of academic learning, and it's probably the primary life skill. And we're not reaching a lot of the students. And when I tutor, I only take the students, the classes where they have the lowest level readers, because we need more people to do that, and I'm one that's willing to come on board.
So as a retired educator, that's what you do now?
Yeah, I do that, and I also substitute teach.
Where did we miss the boat on this?
I think a lot of the problem is that with the kids that are not reading at a proficient level, it starts at the early years of life. We don't have enough parents in these situations where they talk with the children, have the child on their laps, and read to them. And I think we have a lot of students who enter school and they're not reading readiness ready. And that's where we're missing in it, because we don't have enough people working with the students other than the classroom teacher. What happens is if they start out school, say a year behind, what happens is they never catch up. As they move through the grades, they fall further and further behind. We have a lot of students who graduate from high school, they're reading at a 3rd grade to 5th grade level. The ones who enter school not ready to read, they're the ones that we don't have parents or other caregivers reading for them. That's what they're missing out with. And then as they're in a young age, They could start to learn words, but we're not in certain homes. That's not happening. And then we don't have enough people once they enter school to provide small group or one-on-one instruction. So it's a crisis. It's a crisis of not once they enter school, these kids that aren't ready to read, we don't have enough people to work with them.
Is it hard to become a volunteer in a school and go in and read to kids?
No, it's not hard at all. And you don't have to have college education. You could be a high school graduate, and the only thing you need other than that is willingness to do it and clearances. There are 3 clearances that you need from the state, the federal government, and from the Child Abuse Network. And once you have them, you can work with students.
All right, so you would advise anybody who's got some free time to go down to their local school and sign up to help kids learn to read.
Yeah, that's the crisis in education, is that we have too many students who are behind in reading. What I find is the schools I go into at the primary level, they have good class sizes. They're not overwhelmed with in numbers. Most of the ones that I see have 20 students. But for if the teacher doesn't have help in reading during reading class periods, he or she can't provide well for the lower level reading students. They need more help.
Because you're a former teacher and you're still in the school system volunteering, are you able to get word of your book out there? Is it making it easier for you to draw attention to your book?
Yeah, what I do is I give the book to the principal, and then I'm hoping that they would do an in-service or have me come in for an in-service. And the key element I wrote 2 books, and the key element in both books as far as reading instructions is called the before, during, and after reading process. And it's user-friendly for teachers and students. It's only a 1-page chart, and it lets the teacher and students know what should be done before you start to read, while you're reading, and after you read.
Yeah, you got that right. Thanks so much, Donald. Colonel Marty Z. Kahn retired from the U.S. Air Force since 2015. He has a doctorate in educational leadership policy, and he wanted to share the pride he takes in having served the United States and how his service shaped his life in the hope of inspiring others in his book, Uncommon Duties in the United States Air Force.
In 1976, I decided I was going to join the Air Force because I wanted to be a pilot. That never came to be. I became an intelligence officer dealing with international politics, international issues, and doing analysis of various political issues to see how the United States can understand the dynamics of what's going on in various countries overseas where I was stationed. Things move from within the United States Air Force to the Department of Defense, and from the Department of Defense to various agencies, and then that goes to the National Security Council, and then to the President of the United States. That's the chain of command. So I was providing analysis for the United States Air Force. I think the most significant event was actually one when I was working with the United States military delegation to NATO during the crisis in Kosovo and issues dealing with Serbia. And there were many, many meetings, long meetings in Brussels, and I was there representing part of the U.S. team. And we were providing analysis and looking for guidance, which is political guidance from the Department of Defense on how the United States should present itself in NATO to get consensus. Consensus is a very important thing in NATO. And then the other thing that I remembered was when I was called up for deployment to Central Command in Tampa, Florida, and I was the desk officer dealing with all issues on Pakistan, which required me to travel to Pakistan a number of times, and also with the commander to advise the commander on issues on how to strengthen relations with Pakistan so that the Pakistan Army can support the United States in Afghanistan in the war on terror.
How does this apply to the average guy?
I learned to be successful, it requires a deep understanding of the organization mission. There are certain dynamics an individual who's working in that organization must understand and must be flexible in terms of making adjustments on the way one approaches a particular task. For example, if you're working in private industry, if you do not believe in the mission of the organization and the product the company's selling, and you have philosophical conflicts, you will never be successful. In this case, when I was in the United States Air Force, I never really had any personal philosophical conflicts in the work that I did. Sometimes I would disagree with what the United States policy, but it was a personal thing. It didn't cause me not to do my job effectively. And what I found out was the most important thing that I've learned in the United States Air Force is something what I term perpetual self-analysis, and I describe this in my book. It's essentially looking at myself and asking myself, what do I need to change about myself to be successful in the United States Air Force? And there are some times when I think I'm not successful, or maybe I didn't understand certain things. And I look deeply at myself, deeply and honestly. And there are sometimes I said, well, there are some things I need to change about myself to achieve a successful mission. So that, to me, I think, is applicable to individuals, the average person working in a non-military job, or even in a personal relationship. We have to look at ourselves, and we always have to make adjustments, and we have to show humility. We have to respect other individuals' point of view, and we also have to make sure that our character and integrity are pristine. And to me, I think that's how it would help the average person in a non-military position.
All right, Marty, good stuff. Thank you so much. R.A. Carbajal is twice retired in Texas from 22 years in the Army and 20 years as a high school math teacher. Now he's completely retired, so he decided to start writing. The name of his book, The Blade. The beginning.
It's something that I've had a fantasy of since I was back in the 7th grade. And one of my English teachers encouraged me, hey, you write pretty good essays and stuff, Mr. Carbajal, why don't you do this? Well, now 60 years later, I said, okay, I'll give it a shot. My first degree is in history. My second degree is in mathematics. So that's an odd couple there. I'm being military. I'm very, very interested in military history. And my first effort here is a historical fiction that deals with the early Texas War of Independence, mainly between the Hispanic Army of Santa Anna and the Texan Army of General Sam Houston. What it deals with is a Texan that comes from New York, an Irish American that immigrates from New York, and a young Hispanic boy that is drafted by the soldiers of Santa Anna's army. General Sam Houston has a number of volunteers, of course, and what binds these two together is the book is called A Blade, and this blade, which is given to the Anglo character, and there were 2 battles to the Alamo. I don't know if you're aware of that. One that happened in December of 1835, and the one that everybody knows of in March of 1836. And the blade at the first battle is exchanged because the Anglo soldier is killed and a Mexican soldado picks it up. At the actual battle in March, it's exchanged again. This time it's picked up by another one. It goes down through history until at the end of the first book, my main character picks it up. It's given to it. He comes into this possession, and throughout the rest of the series of books that I'm planning on writing, this blade is going to follow American history, first through the Texas War of Independence, then to the Civil War, where the owner of this knife and the original owner, the Anglo and the Hispanic, they meet unknowns to one another. They do not know about their parentage, meeting and other incidents, and how one saves the other life through the use of this blade. And it's an Irish fighting dirk. And in the very beginning, I go through the process of how it was made. I did some research to see how they made these things. So in each book, there's a highlight in which one saves the other through the use of this blade, and they go back to their regular lives. Well, now we've done the Texas War of Independence. I'm working on the second one. It's going to be called To the Slopes of Glory, and it's going to end at the Battle of Gettysburg in 1863. The following one will take place in World War I and II, Vietnam and Desert Storm. But the thing is that throughout all of these books, when that blade comes out of its scabbard, it's to save successive owner's life, but they never know it. They're not aware of what's happened previously. So at that critical moment, the blade will remember, and it'll acquire a sense of personality as the story continues. And how it's going to end, I don't know.
I don't think it's going to end until you end. I mean,
Maybe.
you got quite a project planned here.
Yeah, and see, I look at it from the perspective of a regular soldier, which I was. So I was just an infantryman. And when you read stories like this, you consistently read about how the general in the grand scheme of things commanded divisions and thousands of men. You know, the guy down at the bottom, at the dirty fingernail level, he had absolutely no idea what was going on from the strategic standpoint. This was something that's a first. You know, how did these soldiers from through these various conflicts, how do they eat? How do they live? How were they resupplied with food and weapons and ammunition? And you know, what kind of things did they endure during that time frame? And I put a lot of research into that.
I'm exhausted listening to you.
I have, mass mail outs. I have an extensive array of family, friends. I belong to the 82nd Airborne Division Association, of which I have some high school friends in there. And then I have a bunch of what my wife calls my bummy army friends that I'm going to be sending out mass mailings with my sell sheet describing the book and about the author, about the book and the ISBN number. Say, hey, go down to Barnes and Noble or get on Amazon.com and order this.
All right. I hope everybody does. I hope all of our listeners go online and download all of the books that we feature here on the Page Publishing Book Club. Great ideas, great stories. If you'd like to know more about our authors, their books, where to buy them online or in an actual store, just go to pagepublishing.com. In the meantime, if you get an idea, whether it's in the shower, in the middle of the night, in the middle of the ocean, write it down. You could activate voice text. So all you have to do is push that little microphone on your iPhone or just keep a pencil and paper. Remember what they are, right? Pencil and paper. Keep them handy. Don't let that idea go. Who knows where it could take you? Maybe right here on the next edition of the Page Publishing Book Club. Download the podcast at 710WOR.com. I'm Alice Stockton Rossini.